Okay, so today I'll be interviewing my own father in relation to his involvement in Whyalla basketball over a long period of time. So Allan was Whyalla Basketball Association President for 3 terms. And
that's where I dispute that.
Okay. For a number of terms, back in the 70s and 80s, I think. So can you first talk to us, Dad, about when you came to Whyalla and what brought you to Whyalla?
Westlands Shopping Centre were about to open, were just being built in 1968. Well, that's when it was due to open, and that was my reason for coming to Whyalla.
You came to Whyalla and got involved in basketball fairly quickly. What had been your history in basketball?
It began as a 16-year-old who was recently started an apprenticeship at VHAS in Port Pirie, and where basketball was in its infancy. I decided that I'd like to play this game of basketball, so I raised a team from my workmates under the Boilermaker title, and we entered the YMCA competition back in 1949, 1950. Without knowing very much about the rules, you learned as you went along, but it was the same with everybody else. They were all learning, and generally they were all footballers anyway, so people I knew. So once I'd finished my apprenticeship, I went to Broken Hill to work as a boilermaker, where in 4 years I played basketball with the Napradak team. Napradak is a European name for a basketball team, and so that's where I really learnt my basketball. They were a much higher standard than what was in Pirie. After 4 years in Broken Hill, I then was employed at Port Augusta at the power station. Once in Port Augusta, I wanted to become involved in basketball still, so one of my workmates was a basketballer, and he took me along to training. The standard was quite poor, and they eventually, when I say eventually, so poor that they made me captain coach of the team that I'd only just gone out to train with. Those 9 years I was vice president of the association, which gave me some experience in, what's the word? Administration. So where I played, I coached, I umpired, and we started moving into women's playing the game and children playing. It was the start of a new era, both in Port Augusta and Whyalla.
Okay, so you came to Whyalla and got involved in basketball. What did you notice? What was your impressions of Whyalla basketball when you arrived? Similar to Port Augusta, similar to Pirie?
Very similar, because I used to come over with Port Augusta teams and play against Whyalla on the old airport grounds.
You got involved in administration in Whyalla or basketball?
I did. I attended an AGM after I'd arrived and was elected to the committee under Howie Heward, who was president, and within 2 years I was president. And I was so for the next 10 years, when I retired and received a life membership from the association. Gunter Scheide was, I think, elected the next president. Well, he was responsible for the actual building of the stadium. My part, leading into that 10 years of when I was president, our committee were building for this time. We had plans all along that we wanted a stadium, and that's what we worked towards, and we raised money and the finance and the plans to do that. Gunter came along and he was responsible for getting it built, and after 3 years he resigned. I was asked to come along to an AGM and then asked if I would nominate for president. I said yes, so I was then elected as president and was for the next 3 years when I retired the second time.
During that first 10 years as president, what did you see as your biggest achievements? You said you did quite a bit of the groundwork towards the stadium.
Yeah.
What other changes did you see in Wyler basketball in that time?
Just after I arrived, we weren't playing at the old airport any longer. We had bitumen courts, 3 courts, floodlit on McBride Terrace. Now with 3 courts we were able to increase our numbers and our range from women playing and children playing.
Yeah.
So that was a big improvement. It wasn't, I'm not taking the blame for that or the fault for that, but it's how the development, the association was developing.
What, through all that time, gave you the most satisfaction about being involved in basketball? Player, coach, umpire and administrator, what has given you the most satisfaction out of being involved in basketball? Because you're involved for a long time.
Firstly, the increase in the number of people playing basketball and to have a stadium in which to play. What gave me a lot of pleasure was every year we'd have finals and teams would line up to receive their medallions or their trophies, and I'd be shaking hands with 100 people of various grades and ages, and they're all happy because they just won a premiership. And that gave me a lot of satisfaction.
So in the mid-70s we had the rec centre, soon followed by the stadium, which went from 1 courts, then 1 indoor and 2 outdoor to 3 indoors. What did you see as the impact of the stadium and playing indoors on basketball?
The fact of having indoor courts meant that people didn't go home in the evening with braces on their hands and knees from falling on the bitumen courts. Games could be played as programmed and not held up because of rain. You could play summer and winter standard.
You saw the standard improve?
Yes, the standard improved as conditions improved.
Looking back now, probably 25 or more years that you were involved reasonably closely in Wyler basketball, who do you see as being major influences in Wyler basketball?
Well, I knew this was coming up and I've been racking my brain back almost 50 years to think of people who I haven't seen or heard their names mentioned in that long a time, but Elsie Allison, one of your friends who brought the juniors along so much. Barry Waddingham and Parker Dix, John and Beaver Rumble, John Kirby, the Littymore family, the whole family involved in that, Bruce and Elaine Dunn, Lorraine and Gunter Scheide, and 3 Putty Girls. There are names that were well involved in basketball back in those days. I think I missed Mick Osborne's name out of that. Yes, and people like that who came from Adelaide and had more experience than what most of us in Wyler had. I can remember just after I came here seeing Michael R. Matt play a game on the courts there. Michael R. Matt used to play for one of the Adelaide teams, and when Mike Osborne came here, one of many school teachers that we took advantage of, they were certainly experienced and lifted our standards of play.
I know it's been a dropped on you at short notice to rack your brain and try and come up with some memories from 50 years ago in some cases, and not having been involved for the last 20 odd years, most likely 20 to 25 years. So it is a stretch, but thank you on behalf of Wyler basketball, but also personally, because your biggest influence on my basketball, and basketball has been a big part of my life. So
Mhm.
thank you on behalf of myself and also Wildlife Basketball. Thank you.